Can't wait. Yud Beis Daled.
Yud Beis Daled, yes.
One who writes two letters in one period of forgetfulness is liable, whether he wrote one with ink, with ointment, orpiment with vermilion, with gum, with ferrous sulfate, or with anything that marks on two walls forming a corner, or on two pages of a ledger that can be read together, he is liable. One who writes on his skin is liable. One who scratches on his skin, Reb Eliezer holds him liable for a sin offering, but Reb Yeshua exempts him. If one wrote with liquids, with fruit juices, in road dust, in scribe's dust, or with anything that does not endure, he is exempt. If one wrote with the back of his hand, with his foot, with his mouth, or with his elbow, if one wrote one letter alongside a written letter, if one wrote over another writing, if one intended to write a chet but wrote two zions, if he wrote one letter on the ground and one letter on a beam, or if one wrote on two walls of the house or on two pages of a ledger that cannot be read together, he is exempt. If one wrote one letter as an abbreviation, Rabbi Yeshua ben Besaras holds him liable, but the Kachamim exempt him.
Okay, Riley, welcome back. Yud Beis Vav.
One who writes two letters in two periods of forgetfulness, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, Rabbi Gamil holds him liable, but the sages exempt him. Okay.
Okay, so we start Perek Yud Gimel. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Oreg Shlosha Chutin Batchila Ve'echad Ala Arik Chayav. Now, when we saw this in Perek Zayin Mishna Beis, we saw that the malacha is Ha'oreg Shnei Chutim, somebody who weaves two threads. Now that's obviously, as we see here, that's not a consensus. That Rabbi Eliezer differs on this malacha. Says that you need that when you're starting off a weave, you need three threads in order to be chayav, and once it's already on the loom, even one is a productive is a productive action, and therefore you'd be chayav for it. The Chachamim say no. They remind us of their position that we saw in that first Mishnah. The Chachamim rim bein batchila bein besof shiro shnei chotim. There are it's two threads no matter where you are. Blanket rule. If you're making a blanket,
it's a blanket rule.
Okay.
I heard it right.
So, yeah, you would have made it if I hadn't got there first, right?
Right. It's true.
Yeah, it comes with the territory of being a dad. It only intensifies when you become a grandfather.
Oh no, they hate when I start doing the puns. They go crazy. Stop.
Yeah, I know. It's like I know I've done well when my kids go, oh.
Yeah, that's what I get, right?
Yeah, I got a great one this last week. I told we were having bagels and lox for lunch, and I told them, do you know that Rastafarians won't eat this kind of lunch because they're afraid of smoked salmon. I said, what? Yeah, they dread lox. Oh. I got such a groan out of them that I was like, yes.
What'd your wife say? What'd your wife say, Shaul?
That's my husband.
All right. We're
okay. So we're in base now. Okay. So I guess we should probably have a picture of a loom over here. Do you by any chance have one in your art scroll there?
Well, it's not exactly. I don't know if it's really a zoom, but it's not really a loom.
No, that's not it. But you go to the previous page. You sure you don't have a picture of a loom in there or something?
No, there's a loom somewhere else, but I don't remember where it was.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So basically, also Shnei Batei Nirin. The Batei Nirin are they're called heddles in English. The way the loom works is that if you've got a nice professional loom, what you have is two pedal-powered frames. the frames have got the heddles in them. Each one's got a space for a thread of the warp to go through. So what you have is these alternating frames that move up and down one behind the other, and when you push one pedal down, then it lifts up the one and brings the other one down, and then you can bring the woof through, whoops, like that, and then you change the directions, and there we go, that's it. Okay, so you've got those two frames, and you put your right foot down, you thread, and you put the thread through, and then you put your left foot down and put it on the other way back. So it's a whole efficient process where your hands and feet are all involved in this weaving process. So when you so one of the malachas we said is oseh shnei batei nirin. If you have two of these heddles, and you I think you thread them. If you thread them, that's the malacha. Is that right? Oseh, when we say oseh shnei batei nirin. Oseh shnei batei nirin hainu sheoseh or mitzaken shtei tabaot. No, where he makes the rings. Or lulaot banirim sheyu patim mishnei chutei shesi. Right, so they should be just making them into a space for that you can make that you can put through the threads. Interesting that's not like under the Gedor Makib or Patish even. It's even because it might not even be the finished article, I guess. As soon as you make two heddles for the threads to go through, that's considered a full melacha. Okay, banirin, bekeros, benafa, bekvara, ubasal. Whether it's banirin, bekeros is the two threads of the weft in the keros. Hukli in the kavim harbe kaminyan futeh shesi, which is a kli with lots of holes in it, according to the number of the threads in the warp. Okay. And benafa is anafa is like is normally nafa and kvara are siv and sifter. Anafa or bekvara, which is these are for sifting flour. So making the holes in them, I think, is that anafa and right.
It says for making meshes.
For making meshes, yeah. Okay. So just give me what Riley. Let's hear what the Sefaria commentary says about all these different kalim.
It doesn't. It says. One who makes two meshes, that is, ties the threads of the warp, attaching them to either and then it doesn't translate the nirin or the keros. Winnow, sieve, or basket is liable for making meshes.
Right. Okay, for making that mesh. All right. So it's not just it's making the holes, whether it's making the holes for the loom or making them for a sifter. I guess that's the.
Yeah, this says a little different. It says, not a little different, but it says, the English is better, I think. One who sets two heddles of a home loom or of a commercial loom, and one who positions the warp reeds of a sifter, a sieve, or a basket is liable.
Okay, so positioning them. So ArtScroll has made a distinction between nirin as a home loom and a keros is an industrial loom. And the nafan kavara is shifting the sifting things to make the holes the right size. That might be what we're going for here. Okay, somebody who sews two stitches. So because one stitch going through the thread will just fall out, so you've got to go through and return. Okay, and somebody who tears in order to sew. It can't just be a distractive tearing, as we'll see in the next Mishna. So those are productive malachas, and that's the shir for chiyuv. Mishna Gimel explains that if somebody just tears for no good reason or just because they're upset, and any other case of just wanton distraction is pater. Not that it's allowed, but if somebody does tear something that is pater. And if somebody is damaging something in order to fix, then the shear is for the tikkun, is according to how much the intended fix is going to be. So there's a very interesting side discussion that goes on here, is that first of all, if somebody is tearing for their own mace for somebody who they're chayav to do kriya for, then the kriya is actually productive, and if they did that on Shabbos, then they'd be chayav for that, because that's a chiyuv if somebody does kriya. And now that once mimela, that means that the tearing is constructive, even if the garment is now worse off for it. The other thing that's an interesting argument between Rambam and the rest of the poskim is that Rambam says that if somebody is angry, he paskins against this Mishna. If somebody is angry and they break something in their anger, he says that they're chayav for that. Why? Because it was therapeutic. Having gone and gotten their anger out, they feel better. So that is actually, it turns out to be chayav. Whereas the other poskim all take issue with Rambam and say no. If somebody, we have they quote from Tehillim, Lo yeh b'cha el zar, you should not have any sort of foreign gods in you. What's this? What kind of foreign god can be inside a person? And this is the Yetzer Hara. And they say, and they derive from this that it's like an avodah zarah. That if somebody has inside themselves that anger is like an avodah zarah.
I think it's also like lashon hara. It's the same.
That's a completely negative thing. That that somebody we said that somebody who breaks something in his anger is like is ki'ilu, he's worshipped avodah zarah. And since avodah zarah is 100% negative, that breaking is not something constructive. He's just done something that's an aveira, and that's like tantamount to avodah zarah, and therefore he'd be pater from us on Shabbos. So ironically, because they are much more machmir on somebody breaking something in their anger, that it turns out to be a kula as far as Shabbos is concerned. Okay.
Cool.
Right, test base.
For where do we learn that a ship is not susceptible to tumor contamination? For it is stated, the way of the ship in the midst of the sea. From where do we learn that a garden bed that is 6 by 6 tefachim may be sown with 5 types of seeds, 4 on the 4 sides of the garden bed and 1 in the center? For it is stated, like the earth, it will give forth its plant, and like a garden, it will cause its seeds to grow. Its seed is not stated, but its seeds, plural. And here they have a diagram somewhere. There it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I'm not going to beat around the bush on this one. We'll just give the proper translation. From where is it derived that a woman who discharges semen on the 3rd day after relations is ritually impure? Because as it's stated, and he said to the people, prepare yourselves for 3 days and do not approach a woman. That's from Exodus. From where is it derived that one may wash the circumcision on the 3rd day, even if it occurs on Shabbos? It's stated, and it came to pass on the 3rd day when they were in pain. Gracious. The pain from circumcision lasts longer than at least 3 days. And as long as the child is in pain, he's considered to be in danger. That's just the commentary. So from where is it derived that one who ties a scarlet strip of wool to the head of the scapegoat?
That one does tie it.
Oh, that one does, right. Where do we get that? As it stated, if your sins be like scarlet, they will become white like snow.
From where do we learn that some anointing is tantamount to drinking on Yom Kippur? Although there is no proof for the matter, there is an intimation of the matter, as it is said, and it came like water into his innards and like oil into his bones.
Okay. Bikurim, Aleph base.
For what reason does he not bring? Because it is written, the first of the first fruits of your land, only if all their growth is from your land. Tenants, lessees, Sikaron, and robber do not bring for the same reason, since it is written, the first of the first fruits of your land.
Your land, not land that you stole.
Right.
And not land that's somebody else's, yeah.
Yeah. Bikurim are brought only from the 7 species, not from dates grown on hills, not from other species grown in the valley, or from olives that are not choice. Bikurim are not to be brought before Shavuos. The people from Mount Zivonim brought Bikurim prior to Shavuos, but they did not accept from them. For it is written in the Torah, and the festival of the harvest, the first fruits of your labors which you have sown in the field.
These bring but do not recite. The proselyte brings but does not recite, because he cannot say which the Lord swore to our fathers to give us. But if his mother was an Israelite, he brings and recites. When he prays privately, he says, the God of the fathers of Israel. When he's in the synagogue, he says, the God of your fathers. But if his mother was an Israelite, he says, the God of our fathers.
The halacha does not follow this Mishna. The Gary says the same nusach as everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Trumas Aleph Gimel.
A minor who has not produced 2 hairs, Rabbi Yehuda says his truma is truma. Rabbi Yossi says if he has not reached the age of vows, his truma is not truma. But after he has reached the age of vows, his truma is truma.
Okay. They should not take truma from olives for oil or from grapes for wine. If one did, Beis Shammai says there's truma. There's truma in the olives or grapes themselves. But Beis Hillel says the truma is not truma.
One may not separate truma from leket, shikha, peo, or hefker, or from ma'aser rishon from which truma has been separated, or from ma'aser sheni, or holy things which have been redeemed, or from the libel for the exempt, or for the exempt for the libel, or from detached for attached, or from attached for detached, or from new for the old, and from the old for the new, or from produce of Eretz Yisrael for produce grows abroad, or from produce from abroad for produce of Eretz Yisrael. And if he did separate truma, it is not truma. Okay.
Taurus. Hey Gimel.
Hey Gimel. Regarding 2 paths, one tameh and one tahor, if one walked on one of them and then prepared taharos, and they were eaten, he was sprinkled once and again, and immersed and purified himself, and then walked on the second path and prepared taharos. They are tahor. If the first taharos are still extant, then these and those are suspended. If he did not purify himself in the interim, the first are suspended, and the second should be burned.
The second one's now certainly going to be tameh because now he's been on both paths, and they're going to be tameh. So it's interesting that it depends on whether the first ones, if the first ones have already been consumed, then we say okay, then we can be tole. We can say okay, so we'll assume that those ones are the ones that are tameh, and the new ones that we're asking a shayla about now, those are the ones that are tahor.
Yeah. Okay. If there was a sheretz and a frog in a public domain, and a man touched one of them, and then prepared clean foods, which were subsequently eaten, consumed, and then he immersed, and then he touched the other and prepared clean foods, the latter are deemed clean. If the first foods were still in existence, both must be held in suspense. If he did not immerse in the meanwhile, the first are held in suspense and the second must be burnt. Just stop touching things.
Yeah.
Regarding two paths, one tamei and one tahor, if someone walked on one of them and prepared taharos, and his friend came and walked on the second path and prepared taharos, Rabbi Yehuda says if each of them inquired separately, both are ruled tahor. But if both people inquired together, both are ruled tamei. Rabbi Yossi says either way, they're both tamei.
Right. So I think that we defined this down to the situation where they both came to the same Rav, I think. Even the Gemara explains that this is if both of them came at once, then everyone agrees that they're both tamei, and if they both went separately, then everyone agrees that they're tahor. So what's the machlokes? Is that the one came and asked a shaila on himself and on his friend. What is the din of both of them? According to Rabbi Yehuda, the din is as if they were asking one after the other, and then they both become tahor. Whereas Rabbi Yossi says no, it's like they're asking the basachas, and they're both tamei, and the halacha follows Rabbi Yossi that they are both tamei. Okay. Menachos Dalet.
Okay. Vav Dalet. All mincha offerings which are prepared in a vessel require breaking into pieces. The mincha offering of Yisrael one folds in two, and the two into four, and separates them. The mincha offering of the Kohanim one folds in two, and the two into four, and what does not separate them. The mincha offering of the anointed Kohen he did not fold. Reb Shimon says the mincha offering of the Kohen and the mincha offering of the anointed Kohen are not broken into pieces, since they do not require kmitza. And whatever does not require kmitza need not be broken into pieces. All of them are olives fire.
All the meal offerings require rubbing 300 times and striking 500 times with one's fist or palm. Rubbing and striking are performed on the wheat kernels to remove their husks prior to grinding them into flour. And Rabbi Yossi says they're performed on dough to ensure a smooth product. All of the meal offerings come as 10 loaves or 10 wafers from each 1/10 of an ephah of flour, except for the showbread and the griddle cake offering of the high priest, which come as 12 loaves or wafers. This is the statement of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Meir says they all come as 12 loaves, except for the 4 types of loaves that accompany the thanks offering and the 2 types of loaves that accompany the peace offering of the Nazir, which come as 10 each.
The Omer offering consisted of one isaron of flour refined from 3 saws. The Shtei Lechem consisted of 2 isaron refined, but from 3 saws. The Lechem Apanim consisted of 24 esronim refined from 24 saws. Okay.
It's Nadarim. Test Dalet.
Rameya also said they can find ground to annul his neder from which is written in the Torah, and they say to him, if you had known that you transgress, you shall not take vengeance, or you shall not bear a grudge, or you shall not hate your brother in your heart, or you shall love your fellow as yourself, or that your brother may live with you. Perhaps he will grow poor and you will not be able to support him. Would you have vowed? If he had said, I had known that this was so, I would not have made the neder, and it is permitted.
The halakhic authorities may broach disillusion with a man by raising the issue of his wife's marriage contract. My commentary says, if one takes a vow that would require him to divorce his wife, for example, he prohibits her from deriving benefit from him, his vow may be dissolved by asking him whether he had considered how difficult it would be to pay her marriage contract. and an incident occurred with regard to one who was vowed against his wife deriving benefit from him, and her marriage contract was worth 400 dinars. And he came before Rabbi Akiva, and he obligated himself to give her the payment of her marriage contract. He said to Rabbi Akiva, "My teacher, my father left 800 dinars as our inheritance, of which my brother took 400 and I took 400. Isn't it enough for my wife to take 200 and I will have 200? Rabbi Akiva said to him, even if you sell the hair on your head, you must give her full payment for her marriage contract. And he said to him, so the guy responds, had I known this was so, that I'd have to give her everything, I would not have vowed. And Rabbi Akiva permitted her to derive benefit from him.
And he annulled the vow.
They can find grounds to annul a neder by reason of festivals or Shabbos. At first they used to say those days are permitted, but all the other days are forbidden, until Rebbe Akiva came and taught that a neder which has been nullified in part is nullified by its entirety.
So if you can find, if you say, oh, if you'd known that if you take this neder, it would ruin your Yom Tov, then you would say, oh, no, I wouldn't have taken such a vow. So initially they would say, okay, so fine, so now his neder is voided on Yom Tov, but the rest of the time it's still chal. And Rabbi Akiva said, no, once it's partially gone, it's fully gone.
Fully gone. Okay.
Okay, we're done.
Terrific. Great. That's it.
Okay.
Okay, have a
Everyone
great
have a
day,
good day.
everyone.
Enjoy.
Bye.